Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who dreamt of being a teacher. She worked really hard in school and eventually got to university and qualified for her dream job, and she became a primary school teacher. She worked for many, many years, and eventually she ended up in a school where the head teacher was a big, bad wolf. And we all know about them, don't we? One day, the big bad wolf said, "You must come to a meeting." Now, this teacher wasn't very keen on meetings, but this meeting she had to go to. It was an appraisal. Dun, 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 dun. Those of you who work in teaching or in any kind of education setting know all about appraisals. So the day came, and that teacher toddled off to her appraisal with all of her paperwork that she'd spent hours preparing. And one of the first questions the big bad wolf asked her was, "Shelley, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?" Well, guess what that teacher said? And by now, you've realised that teacher was me. She said, "Greece." Well, that didn't go down very well. And I don't really think that was the answer the big bad wolf was looking for. And things pretty much went downhill from then onwards. Welcome back to the channel. Hi, I'm Shelley. I'm 61. My husband David, he's 62. And we retired to Greece in September 2022. I'd just like to say thank you for watching our very first video. We are hoping to get better as time goes on. It was really appreciated that you watched it. We had quite a few views. And just a little disclaimer here for anyone who did watch. I'm sure you had a huge laugh at the state of my hair, which pretty much was looking like a bird's nest. I do promise you it's not always like that. And today, just in case, I've got a clip, because it is a little bit windy again today. Crete does tend to be a windy island. So if you really feel like a laugh, go back and watch our first video. I'm sure you'll find it extremely funny. So let's get into today's video. The title of the video today is, "Why Did We Choose Greece?" Just as a little side note, David and I are on our second marriage. So pretty much that was the main reason we decided to go on holiday to Greece, because we wanted our first holiday abroad to be in a country that neither of us had visited. And Greece was the place we chose. From the moment we landed, we felt something, a feeling that never went away. On the transfer coach to our apartments, once we'd landed, we saw the whitewashed buildings, the blue sea, the blue sky, the gorgeous bougainvillea, and we saw people, families together having fun, sharing huge tables of food, laughing. We could hear music coming out of the churches, and much more. Now that was around 2007. I do have some notes here because I've got a lot of dates to remember. Following that visit, our first visit to Greece, because we fell in love with Greece, we decided we'd try all different kinds of places in Greece, mainly Greek islands, I have to say. And every time we visited Greece, that feeling, it just never went away. In fact, if anything, it got stronger. There was a time where we did try to move to Greece I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years after we'd first visited. We even looked at the details of a taverna with an apartment above. But as is happens, life just, got in the way and it just didn't happen. However, our obsession with Greece, it just never went away. And I think I was truly obsessed. I used to get really excited when it was Greek week at Lidl, just to rush in first and buy Retsina and Mythos and Saganaki and all the Greek delights that they have in Lidl when it's Greek week. I became obsessed with the movie Shirley Valentine, and I can actually recite it word for word. For those of you who don't know the movie Shirley Valentine, it's about a middle-aged woman who goes on holiday to Greece and never goes home. I'll put a link in the description box below. And if you are obsessed with Greece like we are, I'm sure you'll enjoy that movie. I did watch it on repeat, and I still watch it even though I live here. I also discovered the series called The Durrells, which has stars Keely Hawes, and she's a mother who moves her family to Corfu. And again, that was also on repeat. As I said before, I pretty much think I became obsessive. I also listen to Greek music CD in the car every morning on the way to work. A family member bought me a CD called Echoes of Greece, which I can link below also. It's beautiful Greek music. And on those horrible days when I was driving to school to see The Big Bad Wolf, I would put on my Echoes of Greece CD, and it just took me there and made my working day so much better. I also had a Collins Easy Learning Greek audio course, which I can link below, and I listened to that in the car too. So, as you can see, I think I pretty was obsessed. But if I'm honest, David and I never really thought we'd ever move to Greece. We always thought it was just a dream. A beautiful, beautiful dream that would never become reality. So, over the next 10 years, we do like to holiday, and we thought as well as trying many other places in Greece, we travelled to other places in the world. We went to Egypt many times, Mexico, the Cape Verde, the Canary Islands. None of them left us with the same feeling that Greece did. They just didn't have the pull of Greece. We had beautiful holidays. Sorry about the wind, everybody. As you can see, it has picked up. We did have beautiful holidays, as always, but those places never felt like home, and Greece always felt like home. Every time we left Greece, I felt like I left a little part of me behind. Sometimes we even thought about not visiting, just because of how difficult it was to leave. Sorry. Then, a chance happening in 2016 changed everything. So, my school, who was run by the Big Bad Wolf, we were part of an academy, and the academy decided to change the holidays. And normally we used to have a week in the spring break, but they decided to give us 2 weeks in the spring break and 1 week at Easter. And that was perfect because we decided we'd have a little holiday in the spring. At the same time, I'd been reading Victoria Hislop's book, The Island. If you haven't read that, I'll link it below. It's a fantastic read, and I'd become fascinated with the story. Obviously, the story was set in Greece, and it was centred around a leper colony on the island of Spinalonga. So, just out of curiosity, I decided to look and see if that island was actually real. And if it was, could you actually visit? And guess what? Yeah, you could. The island is set on the island of Greece. In case you don't know the story, I'll link it below. And as I said before, it's about a leper colony on the island of Spinalonga, just off the coast of the villages of Alunda and Plaka on the northeast part of the island of Crete. I found a cheap Thompson holiday to Crete, and the apartment we stayed in, the owners even had a boat which could take you to visit the island in the book. I was so excited. So in May 16, we arrived very late, around about midnight. We found our accommodation, which was absolutely beautiful. Really simple, really rustic. It had a lovely bamboo thatch style roof, and it was right on the seafront. We couldn't see the views because obviously it was midnight and it was black dark, and we had that delight to come in the morning. And then, you will never believe what happened next, because I actually think this was meant to be. In the bar of the apartment complex where we were staying, David spotted an old school friend who he knew had moved to Greece about 10 or 11 years. What a coincidence! So we had a catch up with them, and then we went to bed. The next morning, we opened up the shutters. Oh my goodness, we were met with the most beautiful blue sea that we've ever seen in Greece. It was like paradise. There was every shade of blue in the water that you can imagine, and it was just mesmerizing. Over the next few days, we fell in love with the village, and for the first time, we actually felt that this could be the place we could actually live. It had everything we needed locally. It had supermarkets, dentists, doctors, tavernas, etc. It's even got a lovely weekly market which we use right now with fresh fruit and vegetables and lots of local goods. And we discovered that many of these things are open all year round. We then visited the wonderful Spinalonga Island, which was the island in the book I was reading, and that was a very emotional trip, and that made our connection to Greece even stronger. Sorry, the time came to leave and go home. This was always the difficult time when we left Greece. Always. Even though we thought we will return, we never wanted to leave. Now, anyone who has seen the Shirley Valentine movie will remember the little quote when she says, I have this little thought in my head and it won't go away. What if I didn't go back? Who would really miss me? Now, at that moment in time, I knew we had to go back, and I also knew that many people would miss us and we would really miss them. But it then dawned on us, maybe we could make this happen. Maybe we could go home, make it happen, and come back and actually stay here. As I said before, that was May 2016. We did return home, and believe it or not, a couple of weeks later, after we returned, the UK had the Brexit referendum. The vote happened in June 2016, and for those of you who are not in the UK, or those of you who can't remember the vote results, it was 51.9% to leave and 48.1% to stay. It was incredibly close, and obviously David and I voted to remain, and if I'm honest, I didn't really think the UK would ever leave the EU. How wrong was I? We were obviously gutted, and actually, I'm not ashamed to say that I actually cried because I thought that's our plans scuppered. We'd already got it into our heads after leaving Crete. That's it. We were going to live the rest of our lives there. We were going to come home, sort everything out, and go back and find somewhere to live and live there happily ever after. But not now. Because of Brexit. In a matter of weeks, our dream has been shattered and we were absolutely devastated. So, over the next 3 years, we pinned our hopes on Brexit not going through because there was actually an adjustment period and things weren't going to be finalised until January 2021. But then came the next bombshell, the pandemic. David and I pretty much thought that everything was working against us. At this point, it was just all too much for me, and I decided to take early retirement from teaching in July 2020. By the way, the Brexit deal did finally go through, for those of you not in the UK, and it went through in January 21, and it was absolutely devastating for us. However, as I've said, I was now retired. Some time had passed, I was rested and, felt better, and I now had time on my hands. And one day, I woke up and thought, I'm not going to give up on our dream of 13 years. I'm just not going to. It wasn't going to be a dream that I was just going to lose. I was determined to make it a reality for both of us. So, I had already started a little bit of research but couldn't find any way of making it happen, but I was determined to find a way. So, I spent quite a bit of time researching, and one day, to my absolute delight, I discovered that Greece were now offering visa options, which we will discuss in depth in the next few videos. Now, one of those visa options was definitely going to work for us, and we decided to go for it. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew the paperwork looked tricky. There were going to be interviews at the embassy, but we weren't going to give up. We'd come too far. There was light at the end of the tunnel, and that big bad wolf from many years ago wasn't going to blow my house down. She did ask me, where would you be in 5 years' time, Shelley? And I did say Greece. Well, maybe it took a little bit more than 5 years, but we were going to be in Greece, and I was going to prove her wrong. So we started planning. Now, obviously, we were in the middle of a pandemic, so traveling became very difficult. Though you know, for a little time you could fly, for a little time you couldn't fly. But we knew we needed somewhere to live because we needed an address for our visa paperwork. So eventually we did fly out in 2021 to look at apartments, you know, with the masks and the hand gel and the social distancing, etc. But we didn't find anything suitable. However, again, we weren't going to be put off. So what we decided to do was sort everything out, give ourselves a year, and move in September 2022. Our logic was, if we hadn't found anywhere to live, we could maybe take a holiday let until we found somewhere permanent. There were many holiday lets where we wanted to live. 2022 was the busiest year of our lives, both emotionally and physically. I haven't said previously, but David was still working through the pandemic as he was an essential worker, so I was doing all the organising and packing. Sorry, just have to turn the pages here. Despite all of this, we did meet our deadline, and we moved to Greece in September 2022, and that's when we could actually stop, breathe, and begin our new life. So that's why we chose Greece. That's how we chose Greece. But I sometimes think, you know, Greece chose us. Greece was the first place David and I ever visited together, and it seems fitting it will be the last place we'll be together. It was meant to be. I really think it was meant to be. So, in our next videos, we're going to cover all that we had to do in that year of 2022 and beyond. As I said, it was an extremely busy year, and I can't actually believe, looking back, how much we did to get here. So the videos will include step-by-step guides to each of the following. We'll set a timeline for your move, explain why a timeline was really, really important. That's the first thing we did. It doesn't sound like it's important, but it's actually one of the most important things. We'll discuss all the visa options, explain them in detail, including the paperwork side of things, the financial side, because obviously there is costs involved, and the actual face-to-face interviews you have to attend. We had a house to sell, so we'll explain in depth how we prepared our house for sale, and we also found a fastest way to sell our house which fit in well with the timeline, so we'll explain that. We'll also discuss international removal firms because we decided to take some things with us, and we'll explain which one we use and why we think they were the best. They also offer storage too, both in the UK and in Greece. They are actually Greek specialists. And then we'll carry on with the videos for when you get to Greece, because when you get to Greece, you have to obtain residency, and that's just another hurdle to go through with money and paperwork, and we'll explain exactly how you do that step by step. Also, the financial side of things, opening a bank account in Greece, obtaining a tax number, because you can't do anything in Greece without a tax number, and any other financial things we think are important. And then, once all that's over, your life begins. So after those videos, we'll concentrate on videos about settling into life in Greece, including things like the cost of living, healthcare, the climate, the differences between summer and winter, because if you live in a Mediterranean country, it's not hot all year round. The climate is different in the winter. And also, if you live in a tourist area like we do, there are many differences between the summer and the winter. Then we will just choose videos on things we think are important to you and things that we like, things about our life that you might find useful, or not even useful, you might just find them interesting. Lots of topics, including food, days out, where we live, learning to drive a car on the wrong side of the road, etc., etc. We'll have some fun along the way. So, thank you for watching this video. We really appreciate it. If you feel like it's something you've enjoyed, can you please give us the thumbs up? We are a very, very new channel and we're trying to grow our channel. We are predominantly making this just to help people, but the more likes the video gets, the more YouTube puts it out there, and that means more people can be helped. And we kind of want to pay it back. We've achieved our dreams and we'd like to help other people do that. So please give us the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. We do intend to upload 2 to 3 times a week, maybe. Depends how good we get at this. We are novices at the moment. And please comment below if there's anything at all you would like us to cover in future videos. We're always there to help, and if there's something we've missed, please let us know. Okay, thank you. Bye. See you in the next one.